Unoma Ohamboa to tell us briefly in about 5 minutes her story and what she does.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is pharmacist. I don't like putting pharmacist actually. My name is Unoma Ohabungwa, and I'm a clinical pharmacist, and I'm also the managing director of Orad Foods. So, how did I start Orad Foods? Um, I went to school. Okay. While I was in school, I got tired of the Oyibo food, so to speak. So, and I went to the market where you can get African food. And I was amazed at what I saw. You, the way you go to Gariki Market, okay, you will see everything. And I was asking one of my customers, how do you guys get ogo, or raw leaves, ogili, the local condiments we use here? You see it's all fresh. So she now told me that there are people that bring it in. For example, if you want fresh ugu, you come on Tuesdays. If you want banga, you come on Thursdays. And I was asking, how does it come in? He said there are people get these things in. But apart from that, I observed the way they do it over there, how they package their food. You can get things all year round. Whatever it is, they know how to package it, they know how to distribute it all over. And you get whatever it is you want all year round. And it got me thinking. And secondly, midway during my studies, I met this young man. He he deals in melon seed. We call it egusi because I come from Anambra State. We call it egusi, and he exports egusi from Nigeria to UK, US, Asia. I mean, he's big. So it got me thinking. I said, "Oh, wow, what can I do? There are so many things we can do here. What can I do?" So when I came back, of course, I was now thinking, okay, let me start a pharmacy. And starting a pharmacy is not small money in this town in Abuja. When they tell you the rent is 4 million, 5 million, and you've not even thought about the drugs you put in there. So I got a job. I got a government job, and I'm still working till today. But I said, I need to start something. What I wanted to start with, I needed big capital, which I don't have. My husband doesn't even have that kind of money because we need to buy machinery, need to buy a lot of things. And after a while, I said, what do I do? Before I went to study, I had my baby. I left for school when my baby was a year, 6 months. And I remember when I was trying to wean her off breast milk, I went to the market, I bought ogi. I made the ogi, I just didn't like the taste. I bought another one, I saw house fly. I said, Unama, what is even wrong with you? Don't you know how to make this thing? Because I grew up with ogi. That was what we were taking. I think most mornings, that's what we take with either moi moi or akara. So I said, why not? Since you don't have money to start what you wanted to do, why not start something? That was how I started the pap. And my husband did not like that. He said, are you kidding me? So you're trying to tell me, okay, it's pap that you now want to do. You decrease. I said, no, it's not like that. But now he's my greatest cheerleader. He's now my greatest cheerleader. And I started small. I started in my kitchen. I started in my house. And I started with my colleagues. I started selling to my colleagues, fellow pharmacists. It was one colleague of mine, a pharmacist, that now told me, oh no, why not bring this into my pharmacy? Let's start. That was how I started. I started putting it in the pharmacy. When I now knew that this thing is moving, you know, I now said, okay, it's now time to do the proper thing so that I'll be able to get it into stores. So we now did our NAVDAC registration number. And that was how we started. I'm doing it. You know, there are so many challenges that comes with it, coupled with the fact that I have little kids, you know, they are still small, and I also have a government job, but I thank God where we are today. Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. Notice that she said when she started, her husband warned that after B Farm and then Masters in the UK, you want to sell Ogi. You know, when she came in this morning, I saw a man with her, and she told me, that's my husband. He was the one that carried everything from the car, was displaying the table. And so when she says he's her biggest fan now, believe her. Okay? All right, Mrs. Adequite, just about 5 minutes to tell us what Wimbiz is about and how it can benefit the women and everybody in the house.
Okay, so since he wants me to just talk about Wimbiz, which is the organization I sort of run now, I will just go straight into the
corporate. And so, my first job in Standard Trust Bank, 5 months after I worked in Standard Trust Bank, I was sacked. Not that I was sacked because I didn't do my job. I was sacked because I didn't understand the environment of being corporate. And actually, Standard Trust laid off about 700 people, but I could have been one of those who were not laid off. And then I had to go back to find something to do, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember my father calling me and saying that, my son, you cannot wake up in the morning, because AIT wanted me to come back to work with them. And I said I wasn't going to go back. I remember I used that phrase, a dog does not go back to its vomit. And so in 2002, my father called me in October and said, you cannot wake up in the morning. 4 months I was with no job. You cannot wake up in the morning and your wife gets up and goes to work and you stay and say because your wife just put to bed, you are taking care of the baby. So you have to find something. Go back to this AIT. And I went back. Finally, but after I went to AIT, my body went to AIT, my soul wasn't in AIT. I left AIT 4 months later. I got to another bank job. One of the bank I actually got was a bank that Dr. Maduka, maybe that's the share he invested in, because the bank he was a shareholder, Assurance Bank of Nigeria, and the bank collapsed 5 years after. No, not 5 years, about 3 years after I joined, it collapsed. And it was like, would you continue to go into places that will fail? And I decided to start my own business. So I started Cinema Productions in 2011, registered it. Actually, I started it as a business name before 2011. I registered it in 2006 as a business name. It became a limited liability company in 2011. Now, when I started Cinema Productions, I decided that I had a passion for media. And I started doing radio programs. I went back to my former station, started doing radio programs. They said I must go and get sponsorship. And that was how I started going around Lagos. Then I was in Lagos. I started going around Lagos looking for people to sponsor my program. I finally got, I made sure I used my contacts. Coca-Cola was doing something and said, somebody who knew me and told that I was looking for sponsorship, said, come and attend this event that Coca-Cola is doing. They're doing their African Father Christmas in Lagos. I went to the event. And they unveiled their African Father Christmas. And the man called me and said, I went to meet him. I said, sir, you invited me for this program, but I don't know how relevant I am to this program. And he said, don't worry. He invited me and called me. He said, this is the marketing manager of Coca-Cola. This is Emmanuel. He does advertising, does programming and all that. So Emmanuel, talk to them. And I sold an idea of an entertainment program to the Coca-Cola manager. He says, okay, come with your proposal the next. To cut a long story short, Coca-Cola sponsored my radio program. I got another sponsorship from one of the insurance companies. And then a friend of mine who we used to work in the bank together called me and said, Emmanuel, let us partner together on this media thing. And he invested 3 million naira and said, let us start a business organization. We called it Festin Media. We had our office in VI. But then, here was I, who had just come out of employment, who was trying to, I didn't know much about business. I was just struggling in business. So, 2 years after, 3 million naira went down the drain. Business collapsed. And I said, I came to Abuja to look for business opportunity. But still in the media. I was still in the media. Then Dark Communications, who are the owners of EIT, were about to start the DASAT cable television. DASAT cable television. And let me just tell you one secret. The secret is that the owner of Dark Communications is actually my mother's younger brother. But I didn't want to live in that shadow of my uncles, working for my uncle. So I went to meet him. I said, look at this DASAT. I want to key into it. I want to be part of it. I wanted to start the first business radio station, online business radio station, because I had my training also in business. I wanted to start this radio station, a radio station online. And then he said, is something wrong with your head? You must be a fool. Why would you want to start something? You want to come and be doing business with me? Come back and start working here. And I looked at it. What do I do? Okay. I came back and started working. But I told myself I will not suffer like I suffered before. And I started growing my business. I started speaking in events. And it was one of those speaking events I met Doi, who came to sell his business. And I knew that I needed to key into this. He talked of the box office thing. And so, okay, I met Doi. I said, let me come and know about your business. I came to visit his company. And from there, just before I came, I met Doi. In one of those places, I was working in AIT. I was working as a correspondent, as a business correspondent. I dealt with international organizations, UNIDO. And I met the country director of UNIDO. UNIDO country director said, Emmanuel, we want to do an event. Can you handle the media consultancy? I said, yes, I can do it. I've never done it before. I did it. And I got money. From there, UNIDO introduced me to the World Bank. And I became a media consultant for the World Bank. And just then, I met Doi. I got an office in Doi's place. Today, we are here. My story is long. I've been looking at Pastor Chris, and I know that I cannot wrap my story in 5 minutes.
Let's put our hands together for him.
There have been many challenges, and we'll talk about the challenges as you ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Doi, I just want you to start at this point. There are a lot of people in the house that they're about to start their own business, and they're seeing the mountains. I remember when Doi started his business, capital was an issue. And there was a particular day, maybe you tell that story. Doi didn't have money for transport. Drove his car to the office. There was no fuel to go back. And so he waited for darkness. He was the MD with workers. And so he didn't want his workers to see him trekking home. And so he said he waited for darkness. When all the workers had gone home, he was staying in Guaripan then, and you trekked from Wusetu to somewhere and then had 100 naira or something. But he didn't give up. That's what I want him to talk about. He didn't give up. He stayed at it. And that business that was without capital today, they are turning, should I mention the figure? Okay, he said I shouldn't mention it. So let him just take it from there.
Hi, everyone. So we provide flexible workspace for startup companies in Box Office Hub. And our mission is to create the ideal work environment for entrepreneurs to grow. About 5 years ago, I had a unique problem in my little business. Then I sold promotional products. I would print on wristbands, I would print flyers, print on mugs and all of that. But my major challenge was an office space. People would ask me, where can I meet you in? And I said, okay, let's meet at Mr. Biggs, let's meet at common areas. So that was a big challenge. And my point was, my solution to the problem was begging a friend of mine to give me a little corner in his office, to share his office and also contribute to his rent. But at the point of thinking about that, I thought there would be a lot of entrepreneurs in my shoes who also needed a little corner somewhere. And so that was how I moved from my promotional product business to box office. So for us, box office is just an office space in a little box, a space ideal enough for a table and a chair for a startup to work from, pretty much to reduce risk of business failure and all of that. Today I go to places like Banex Plaza and I see everybody having generators in front of their office space. So that's the kind of solution we bring in. With box office, you don't have to buy your generators like a co-working environment. Your rent is reduced. You also pay flexible rent. I heard someone say, okay, you talked about 4 million naira rent. So with box office, it's very flexible. It's also cheaper. And I remember when I started, I didn't have money. At that point, I was just leaving NYSC. And so the first thing I did was I went to social media to launch the business. Yeah, even without having a space to rent. Rent in Wuse to them was about 10, 20 million naira. I didn't have anything, but I had family, right? I had a family, some of them were abroad. So one of the first things I did was I launched my business on social media, on Facebook then, and I told my siblings abroad for money, I asked them for money. And I remember that one of the things they said was, this was about the first time of asking them for money, and so they trusted me. And everybody contributed money for me at that point. I launched my business. I built a prototype of the box, just something very small to just show people when they came for the launch. And 6 months after that, I had launched. So the day you're talking about, the story you're talking about, we had waited about 3 months into the business. We didn't have a client, and I would go to work morning, night, like 8 a.m., and I would close about 6, 7 p.m. But this day came, I didn't have money for fuel in my car. And so I waited till evening so that nobody would see me trekking. But what happened that day was we got our first client that day. And so the reason why I stayed at work wasn't because I wanted to stay. It was just trying to hide from people seeing me from trekking. And that was the time the client came. And she came around 7 p.m. that night. If I wasn't there, I guess she also wouldn't have gotten the office space. And since then, we've just been building on a box at a time. In the last 5 years, we've provided offices for more than 200 innovative businesses in Abuja. And thank you. So I think for us in Box Office Hub, one thing that has kept us is that we're trying to respond to a So what has kept us in Box Office Hub is that we're responding to a unique problem in Nigeria. There is infrastructural gap. There is no light. Most facilities, real estate facilities, are not properly maintained. And so that mission of creating the ideal work environment for entrepreneurs has really kept us going in Box Office.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have Mrs. Ekaite Umo. She was formerly a CEO of a bank. And like I said, she leads Ekavi Consulting. One thing I would like you to tell us about, Ma, after CEO of a bank, I remember you told us last time you were here, you started a business, soya milk or something. And did it collapse or it almost collapsed because of certain reasons, but you still continued. And there are a lot of people here that are starting something small and they would need that information on how not to make the mistakes that you made. I know it's in your book and all that, but what do they do so that they don't make those mistakes that you made? So just tell us briefly about what you do.
All right, thank you very much for having me. I don't take lightly opportunities to speak at events like this, so I feel that it's a privilege. And with a seasoned panel like this, it's even much more so. My name is Ekaite Umo. I came here with 2 of my children because I believe so much in entrepreneurship, and anywhere and anytime I have an opportunity, I ensure that, I don't know if they're inside or they're out selling the books and the CDs. Okay, one of my sons is actually doing the video, and maybe the older son is, maybe he's outside, I don't know. But why I'm just introducing and mentioning that is because I want us to encourage our children in entrepreneurship. You heard when Dr. Maduka was speaking, he talked about his children being in the business with him. You have to introduce them to your business in good time so that they'll also participate and learn the ropes so they don't make mistakes, because the idea is for them to grow bigger than you and what you did with what you have given them in terms of education and all of that. I trained as a chemistry teacher, but I'm sure many people don't know that. But I became a chartered accountant, and I started and ran a microfinance bank for 8 years. I relinquished that position last year. I'm still a minority shareholder in the bank anyway. And to start and run this consulting business. Why I decided to run this consulting business is because in the interactions with thousands of microfinance clients, I found out that some of them, their problem wasn't capital. It was just even knowing how to put themselves together, their books together. And some of them already had the resources to run the business. And remember that bank loans cost money. Bank loan is not cheap. It's expensive. And even microfinance bank loans are even much more so. So I said to myself, some of this, all they require is just a bit of training to know the resources they have inherent in them, to bring them out and do these businesses. And so that's why I set up the the consulting firm to help people grow their businesses. Some people claim to have business, and really all they have is a hobby, because they never know whether they're making profit, they're making losses, they're just stagnant. And it's disheartening that people will bring businesses from other countries. In year one, you see that they have one branch. Before you know, these foreigners have 10 branches and huge turnover. Meanwhile, someone who started at the same time with them would have one business. 5 years after, it's still the same one business. And sometimes we blame village people, but really, it's not village people, it's our inability to know that we have financial inefficiencies, operational inefficiencies. That's what we're not doing right. And so that's what I do. I consult for businesses that want to grow. There's some businesses that are not ready to grow, so I don't deal with those ones. Businesses that want to grow, make profit, those are the ones I deal with. And to the soybeans milk story Pastor Chris talked about, okay, another thing, this is not the first time I'm in Trem. I was here that's when I told the story. At a point, I wanted to do, I did soy milk. I'm sure we all know soybeans milk. Some of us have drank it, and most of us don't like it. But it's healthy for you, and so, in fact, sometimes one of my children was asking, why is it that the things that are healthy don't taste so good? And I'm saying, well, we'll ask God when we get up there. So I used to make soy milk, and because I was health conscious and all of that, I insisted that I wouldn't put sugar in my milk. I won't add any additives. It would just be straight soy milk. And those of you who've drank it straight without sweeteners, you know that it doesn't taste nice. And but the market I was selling to was telling me add sweeteners, and I refused. And when I started, I would call my friends after I make the milk and all the people I was selling to. And initially, they would come, buy, and all of that. And they kept complaining that, why don't I just sweeten it? I said, no, I wasn't going to sweeten it. And some of them say, okay, they left me. And then sometimes they will come the next time. But the numbers of people people who were buying the milk kept on dwindling. And at a point, I would make the milk, call them that the milk was ready, and they will tell me, they come, and they will never come. And so that's how the business collapsed. Of course, I learned some lessons from that. I am not the market. If I am selling to the market, and the market requires sweetener, even if I didn't want sugar, there were other alternatives. Why didn't I think of honey? I think it was even when I was here, Pastor Chris, that someone said to me I could have used dates to sweeten the milk. I didn't know about that, and I didn't do it. So one of the things I also do is train people. The market is very different from you. Sell what the market wants, as long as it's within your ethical boundaries. I mean, there's some things that are outside your ethical boundaries that you shouldn't do. But, for instance, the sweetener of the soy milk, what stopped me? I wasn't being headstrong. I was saying I'm trying to get people to make them to be healthy. If they want to be healthy, they know what to do. So why am I giving myself work unnecessarily? Okay, so that's how that business failed. But of course, I learned from there, and I But what I'm particular about is the fact that we can grow our businesses to be bigger than what it is. We tend to just have small businesses and stay with it. I'm sure that there are many, many businesses here that if you look at their sizes, their balance sheets, and their records, they haven't improved. They're just sitting there. And they'll continue to be the same size. How are we going to stop unemployment in Nigeria if we continue to have businesses that are that small? That's my idea of the consulting business. Let's have growing businesses that are making profits so that they can employ the teeming population of young people that we have in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. You know, when Dr. Cosmos was talking about his convictions, he knew what he wanted to do, and he spoke about it, so much so that he had to drop his mother on the road. I mean, I would have loved to ask him, did you leave her and go away? You didn't come back to pick her again, or you just left like that, you know? But that's how convinced he was about what he wanted to do. Somebody's asking a question. I would like Mrs. Akaite to answer her. I know Dr. Cosmos must have answered it, but just to settle the person's heart. He says, I'm a computer science graduate, but I'm good in terms of catering and event management. But my parents are really concerned because they want me to get a job. For 4 years now, I've been searching for that job, and I've not gotten the job. And I'm doing catering on the side because I'm very good at it. But my parents are concerned. They want me to get a job. What do I do? At this point, if you have questions, you can write them, or you can just begin to come to the mic and ask any question at all with regard to your business or what you want to do. And anyone here will answer it.
All right. Since it's directed at me. Okay, so I wish I could meet your parents. I would be congratulating them for having a son or daughter like you who is that entrepreneurial. I think that they should encourage you to go in your, I mean, who goes wrong with catering business? There's so many events. Some people now, because they're too busy, they need people who just cook and deliver in their houses. And I must confess, I've used those services myself. And so I don't know who you have, your parents respect, that can talk to them. Nowadays, the jobs are not even there. And you've looked for 4 years. That's enough evidence that the jobs are not there. If the jobs were there in 4 years or 2 years, you should have been able to get one, and you haven't gotten it. I think that you have started right. Stick with your conviction. Look for... I wish you can get a big event to cater for. If you have one big event and you cater for it, and show them that the money you're getting from that event is much more than what salary of a month would give you, I'm sure that they'll be like Mrs. Unoma. Yeah? Your parents will be like her husband. They'll be your supporters because, I mean, I know people who are multimillionaires from catering business. So that is something, honestly, I wish I know you, and I want to meet your parents and just tell them to support you. They should be congratulating you for being entrepreneurial. Who doesn't want a child who has those kind of skills that can generate income on their own? You didn't say whether you're disturbing them for a monthly stipend or anything. But what I would say is stick with it, learn and continue to improve your skills. Because you're coming from computer sciences, there should be some gaps in your skills in catering. There's always something new to learn in catering. Try and improve yourself in catering so that you're also one of the forefront caterers in Abuja or any city that you're in, and then advertise yourself. Also, in events like this, do a bit of catering. This is an opportunity for you to market. At the level you are starting, you don't have budget for marketing. This is an opportunity to bring free samples of what you have and show people and let people taste. Before you know it, I mean, we may be 500 here, maybe 1 out of that or 10 out of that would say, okay, no, you know what, I'm doing something, I'm doing it, get together at my house on Friday, bring so and so. And before you know it, it's expanding. As long as you're consistently good, because one thing I noticed with some caterers, they're good today, and tomorrow they give you something and you're wondering, is it you who delivered or you sent someone? I mean, who did what I got the second time? So if you're consistently good and you're getting some jobs, then ultimately your parents are going to be converts in a very short time.
All right. Unama, you want to add something?
I just add that I don't know how many of us know the caterer, if you know Sapphire Events. It's run by Funke Buckner Obruche. Now, Funke, I knew Funke when she used to work with an advertising agency. And she dropped the job. when she dropped the job, we all thought she was mad or something. And the next thing, she started Zafire Events. Now, Zafire Events started very small. Zafire Events is one of the leading events company in the country. And you can be that. One thing everybody has to know, not every one of us is called to be even a businessman. Some of us are called to be supporters of businesses to grow. So do not think that because if you are not convinced that you should lead a business or should be an entrepreneur, don't go into it. Please support someone because that is your calling. You must know what is your calling and develop it. Thank you.
All right. Nama, you wanted to say something?
The person that asked the question, I don't know whether you are living with your parents in the same house. If you are, they don't follow you everywhere you go. You can start. Because the same thing happened to me. I wanted to start something and I knew that pap was something I could start in my kitchen. My husband did not like it. But because I didn't want us to quarrel over it, I started. He did not know. I was doing it quietly. He thought I was doing the pap for the family. But I'll do it, I'll package it, put it in the freezer, and I'll call my colleagues and I'll supply without him knowing. And we are all good. So please, if that's what you want to do, I'm sure, because 4 years, I mean, it's a long time. And how long are you still going to wait to get that job? Start. Start. Your parents are not following you everywhere you go. You can start without them, beating you up or telling you stop it, stop it. You can start. Because when you succeed, they will be your greatest cheerleader, really.
All right. The skill acquisition training that we've been doing, one of the advice we've been giving the people in the training is put their products on Facebook, put their products on social media and all that. I know Doyin said something about that. I think Emmanuel also said something about that. So Doyin, you see some of the products that they have made. What advice? You said you registered your business, put it on social media. What advice do you have for those that are undergoing this training right now and want to display their products online? What advice would you give them? If you have questions, you can come to the mic, so we'll just take questions from the audience.
I think one of the advantages of social media is that it's very affordable. It's actually free. And the people you're selling to first at this level will be your friends, family, and people around you. So I think that if you can't sell to your friends on social media, then it might also say like you don't have a good product. A good product, a good business starts with a good offering. So don't be afraid to push your product out. Get people to know what you do. Don't be shy to do that. Social media is also free. I think that's where you can make all the mistakes possible. When someone doesn't like your product, they will comment about it. It's also a place where you get free advice because it's free, you understand? And people don't hold back on social media because you can't also see them. They are not shy to tell you the truth on social media. So I would just say get good pictures, that's important because sometimes the product is good, but the way you're presenting it is not good enough. So get a good phone to take pictures. You don't have to pay a photographer at this point for your product, but get a good phone, a friend's phone to take pictures and put them on Twitter, on Facebook. And you should also understand that there are different platforms on social media. You've got Instagram, you've got Twitter, Facebook, and a lot of stuff like that. But you have to know what fits best for your product you're selling. So, but I guess for this kind of product, Instagram may just be a better place for you. I would just say, save cost at this point. Don't do traditional marketing. Use social media, it's free. You get free advice, and from there you can build on it.
Thank you very much. Sir, you have a question?
Doyin, hi. How are you? He's actually my friend. We've used his services for a while, and very perfect. But I have some questions. Now, my question to you is, basically what you are selling is an idea. You have a space, you rent it out to us, then we get to manage your space, then we pay you rent. Now, you are doing this with businessmen in Abuja. Most facility owners, they are businessmen. What you are selling to them is a business. How do you continue with the business without them actually taking over your business? That's one. Then my second question to you is this. You are in a space that is so competitive. And whether you understand it or not, you are gathering people that are very intelligent. Have you thought of bringing them together? Have you thought towards grants, pulling grants, just like some of your competitors do? And I noticed at some point you try to say, oh, this is just what I do, and I don't want to get my hands into other things. I'm very sure you knew about our last discussion. And I'm wondering, for someone that really wants to take this business to a very global level, you might want to put your hands into even what others are doing to remain so competitive. Those are my questions to you.
Thank you. I think it's a personal question to me than for the audience, but it's fine you're asking. Thanks very much for it. Yes, competition is real. When we started 5 years ago in Abuja, there were about 12 co-working spaces, accelerators, and incubators in Nigeria, but today there are 77 of them in Nigeria. But I think that strategy in itself is knowing what you will not do than knowing what you want to do. For us, we've got a direction. Our model is more about co-working. Primarily, there are different solutions in the entrepreneurship assistance economic development sector, but our focus is just infrastructural gap. There is no power in Nigeria. Cost of rent is also very high, and the rent is also not flexible. Ideally, you would have to pay your rent annually, or say, pay for 2 years at once. And so for us, the core of our solution is that startups can come to our space and get an office space and pay monthly. That way we differentiate ourselves from a lot of landlords who would say, pay me annually. So that's aside, but I get your point. The second part of it, where you're thinking landlords will take over our business, yes, that's also a very big risk for us. At this point, we don't have enough capital to own our buildings. What we can continue to do is to innovate around it. If you look at the startup culture, work is becoming dematerialized. I mean, there's a lot of nomadic nature to work right now because of the digital penetration. People are having offices on their computers and their phones in their bedrooms without necessarily needing a physical space. So innovation in itself can help us grow beyond the competition. And so that's some of the things we're doing to help us stay ahead of the competition.
Okay. Like we can observe, and I mentioned this before, a lot of people that are taking this training, and a lot of people in the audience, they are women. Some of them are wondering, like the person that asked the question about catering and all that. My family, they are ashamed, in quote, of what I'm planning to do, graduate, going into catering and all that. And you talked about support for women. What kind of products do you have that someone here that is 1,000 naira, that has a good skill, good products, but just has 1,000 naira, what products are available for them in Wimbiz?
So as I said earlier, we have